Hello everybody, and welcome to a little first impressions video / review on this new guy right here. This is the Spyderco Rhino that has just finally been released. It's been off and on released for I want to say over a year now. You know, Spyderco says it is about to be released and then it hasn't been. And here it finally is. And I'm actually really liking this guy, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why and why I think it's going to be a great knife. Then I'm going to carry it for a couple more weeks and cut some stuff with it, and more stuff with it, I should say. But, you know, just kind of get to know it a little bit more, and then you'll see the full review. So first things first, I want to do a size comparison here, and as a little teaser, I'll put the new CRK Impinda down as a size comparison option, and you know that that's a little bit larger than a small Sebenza, so you can see how small this guy really is. What else can I do? How about the Spyderco Swish buoy? I'm just going to drop that right there. So again, you can see that this is a very small knife. I want to say the blade is about 2.5 inches, and then right there is your Benchmade 940. So, aside from this being a small blade, this guy is featuring CTS XHP right here. It is made in the Taiwan factory, and it features their CF laminate scales with G10, that sort of thing. So first thing that really popped out about this knife was not only the smallness, but what they do with the smallness. I'm able to still get a good 4-finger grip on this, and I'm comfortable. It's ergonomic. And I have this guy in my hand, this small, tiny little blade. This blade that won't scare anyone. And if it does, then, I don't know, they should be in like an asylum, or they should be going through therapy or counseling or something. Because no one should be scared by this blade. Again, let me just pull out the 940 and just kind of show you the size comparison there. No one should be scared of this. I do believe this is smaller than the Dragonfly. But anyways, they're able to get a 4-finger grip, and it's really ergonomic. It's really comfortable. I'm able to control this blade and guide it really well. Even the tip. I found that the tip is an amazing part of this knife, and even though it's upswept, it still is fairly easy because of how short the blade is to get the tip to where you want it to go to make those precise cuts that I like to make personally. And you still get all the belly that the Rhino offers for slicing, and so I think that's all really great. I think this is an excellent blade shape. It's perfect for the size. Like, you know, if you take a blade, you know, let's say the PM2 a little bit, it's got a little bit of an upswept blade, not as much as the Rhino, but in something bigger like this, it's harder to get that tip to it. I'm having to put my wrist at more of an awkward angle to get that tip to it than I do with the Rhino here. But I still get the blade and a lot of the belly that the Swish buoy offers. So I think that's great. I think that that's really well done. I'm really amazed and impressed by that personally. It has a little compression lock in here, but as far as the action goes, I didn't expect it to by any means. Don't expect it to free fall, because of how light the blade is, firstly, and also it's a Taichung compression lock, which I found to be different than Golden Colorado's. But it still functions very smoothly. It's got a very nice operation. You got a little click there, plenty of engagement. It's not going to slip or slide at all, and it's still really easy to operate with one hand. Even with how small of a blade it is, no need to bring another hand in there. You're able to function or operate this really nicely. I'm glad that they didn't add jimping up here. I think that just makes it a lot more comfortable, and on a small blade like this where your hand is already kind of locked in, I don't feel like jimping is very necessary or needed. So I definitely approve of that one. I already talked about how the blade is very functional, but it is functional in its size as well. I have a little scale here. Let's just pop this on. It is 2.5 ounces, and let me compare that to, I mean, this is a bigger blade for sure. This is the Skaha 2. 3, just a little over 3. So it's not quite as light as something like your Delica is going to be, but it does have stainless liners and all that stuff. And honestly, there's a point where it's just weight. It's not really gonna really matter too much. You know, an ounce and 2 ounces isn't a big deal in my book. So it's definitely light enough for the size. It's not chunky or bulky in my opinion at all. One thing also I was going to mention about the compression lock, about flipping it closed, that you won't be able to do it because it's such a light blade and because it's not really designed to be doing that. Also, you can see here that when it's closed, the ricasso of the blade will poke out and kind of get in your way there. I mean, like I said, it doesn't bother me when you close it like this at all. And so that's just something to keep in mind, though, because if you're thinking, oh, well, this guy is just not flicking it closed, I'd be able to do it. Well, maybe not because of that. One thing I really wanted to talk about is the fit and finish on this guy is amazing. I know it's Taichung, and so you'd expect that, but you know, one of the flaws that I've noticed from Taichung Spydercos is the satin is very rough on the blade, and it creates sharp corners everywhere. If you've ever owned a Sage, any of the Sages, I don't think the buoys, not the buoys, the Gale Bradley suffered from it as much, but the Mantras definitely suffered from it. Pretty much almost every satin Spyderco from Taichung suffered from this issue, but I don't know if I can get you to see in here, but they've actually done a separate chamfer inside the hole and on top of the blade to make it sharp, or not sharp. So I'm rubbing my hand against this, and it is not sharp at all. It is actually less sharp than even like the PM2 thumb hole is, and you know that's a lot more soft compared to a Taichung. So I think they're really improving their quality, and at least on this little blade they are. And I'm really happy to see that, because that's something that just kind of bothers me. Sorry about the plane flying overhead, but that was something that really bothered me about the other Spydercos. The blade just wasn't finished well, but this definitely is, and I'm really happy about that. Also, they've taken advantage and they've ground this very thin. Let me show side by side. So it is about the same thickness as a Benchmade 940, but because of this full flat grind and stuff, you can see it gets very thin behind the edge. The slicing tests that I've done so far have not disappointed me. This is a great wicked slicer. I'm really looking forward to carrying this and getting to cut with it more and getting to use it more, and I think it's going to become, you know, it's hard to say right now because it's so early in the owning stage, but I think it might become a permanent part of my collection just because of how perfect it is in a lot of ways. One thing about it I think is a little odd is they have a full-size pocket clip on here that almost covers the entire handle. That's a little weird. That could be avoided. And also the washers inside are rather tiny. However, they still are around the same size as, maybe a little bit smaller than the washers in the 940. And it's a small light blade. You're not going to do any prying with it. The washer should be fine. But just something to keep in mind right there. Also, another thing that I noticed in disassembling this is the screws thread very shallow. And I almost threaded this screw a couple times just because I didn't want to sit in right, because it was so small and stumpy. It was just rolling around a ton. So that's something to keep in mind. I think that just might come with smaller builds. I do wish that the screws would have been a little bit longer. Another thing I really wanted to mention I thought was really interesting is inside here there's 2 stop pins. There's an internal stop pin and then there's an external stop pin right here. I don't exactly know why they did that. This one of course is working with the compression lock as well, but both work for closing and both work for opening, so that's just something interesting. I guess that they wanted to add it just for stability so that the stop pin wasn't all in one location. Yeah, not 100% sure about that, but I just noticed that. I'll do more research and figure out everything about that for the full review. I do think mainly it's just to add stability for the compression lock since it's in the back, and since it's such a thin compression lock, and for closing they wanted to keep it, they wanted to make sure that they covered their bases. So anyways, that was just a little first impression review. I think if you like what you see, you should definitely pick one up. There's no alarm bells, there's no automatic things that I see about this knife that I don't like. So I think for the main review, unless something really, I really miss something, it's just going to be nitpicks, and it's going to be probably raving about this knife, especially since it's in CTS XHP, which is definitely one of my favorite steels out there. I love it in my Bowie. So anyway, check out the next first impressions review, which is going to be on this guy right here, which is definitely, oh man, I have definitely a ton of mixed feelings about this guy. But stay tuned to check that out, and I will catch y'all in the next video. See you guys.